Or the New York Times, likes to say that he doesn't really want to talk to an aspiring journalist until they come to him with something they've made with their own dirty hands, because it's possible now in a way. Of course, I'm only 25 as well, but I remember when you could buy ink by the barrel, okay? And it was important, and most people couldn't buy ink. You don't have to worry about that now. The two of you have both founded companies, and here's what I want to know. What made you say yes? What made you say, yeah, I could do that. I could have a production company. How many people here think they could have a production company? Not enough hands, but not bad.
A production company was something that Kim and I had actually spoken about a lot. I think it was just a matter of having ideas and feeling like there wasn't really a place for your ideas, and maybe not even an environment where people were interested in discussing those ideas. It didn't seem particularly scary to me, and part of the reason it wasn't scary, I'd saved a lot of money. I didn't feel like I was going to be at a lot of risk. I kind of had a clear idea of what I wanted to do, and if I was doing just one thing or I was doing 20 things, I'd be perfectly happy. I really had no idea how it would turn out, but I think it wasn't really saying yes to something. It was actually saying no to something. It was sort of saying, I don't know that I need to do the same thing I've been doing, on and on and on, and really not seeing a change in the opportunities that were presented to me within one company. And I liked the work I had to do. I had a really wonderful experience. But, often it just felt like we would do shows sometimes on the morning show I did where we would talk about the big debate over women's reproductive rights, and it would be me and 4 guys. And you're like, okay, did not one person think about booking, say, a woman, on this panel who I could interview? I mean, it just was awkward. And I think you just constantly felt like you were fighting this machine that really didn't actually want to tell stories about people of color and really didn't want to do stories about women. I did a documentary called The Women of Ground Zero, which was a look at female rescue workers at 9/11. And they came to me and said, we were left out of the historical record. I was like, not really. And they said, no, look at just click through the pictures of, rescue workers in 9/11. And you're like, wow, you're right. There actually are no women in these pictures. And they'd say, look at some of the memorials. Like, you're right. It's all pretty much guys in the memorials where they show, somebody has sculpted a group of mostly guys doing rescue work. Okay, and if you look at any kind of art or any kind of representation, the women were actually left out. I couldn't believe it until they pointed it out, and I went back and checked. So we did a documentary, The Women of Ground Zero, and when we pitched it, people rolled their eyes and said, well, who's going to want to watch that? And we got permission to do it anyway. And the thing that was interesting about it, of course, on 9/11, when everybody was doing their 9/11 coverage, it actually allowed us to stick out. We were doing a different version of 9/11. We weren't doing the story of the tick-tock of when the towers fell, right? We were doing a very different perspective. So the doc went on to do very well. And at one of the screenings, a guy stood up and said, I just feel like you're trying to show that the women were more brave than the men. And I said, well, actually not. I mean, I think it was a day where there was bravery all around, and that these are just stories that hadn't been told. But I said, let me ask you, give me a guess on the number of dogs of 9/11 stories I've done. Take a guess. A lot. I've done a lot. And no one has said, enough with the German Shepherds of 9/11. Here are the rescue dogs, and what about the dogs, and how about the dogs' feet? Like, how do they go on the pile? And, I just, no one once ever said, enough with the dogs. And the minute you want to do a 46-minute-long documentary about the women at Ground Zero, it becomes this sort of political, uncomfortable, why are we doing this? What's the message we're sending? In fact, aren't we diminishing the guys? I feel like we're taking away from the guys. Wow. It was ridiculous. And so I think that's really the challenge of, it's what you see reflected in the numbers. That's the untold kind of conversation that people feel it's a zero-sum game. And if you promote women, then you're, by necessity, demoting men.
I feel like part of what I'm